Anxiety unmasked. The hidden cause no one talks about. Are you ready for freedom? There are truths so painful you don't want to hear them, but they're the very ones that will set you free. In our modern world, every message beckons us toward comfort, ease, and relentless positivity. We scroll past stories of loss, skip over headlines about struggle, and fast forward through the uncomfortable parts of life. Yet in this frantic avoidance of hardship, we become fragile. We fear failure more than we value growth, and we treat sadness like an intruder rather than a teacher. The very capacity to endure difficulty, to brave pain, is what builds resilience. And, paradoxically, it's what ultimately brings us peace. The ancient Stoics saw things differently. Marcus Aurelius, emperor philosopher of Rome, reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In a culture that equates strength with controlling every outcome, that insight is a slap in the face. It insists that real mastery lies in our inner domain, our judgments, our choices, our attitudes. This isn't an invitation to cold detachment or indifference. It's a call to reclaim agency in a world that constantly threatens to overwhelm. Us Epictetus, born a slave and later a revered teacher, taught that some things are up to us and some are not up to us. He owned nothing but his own will, and from that foundation built a philosophy that has outlived empires. When he said, "It's not things themselves that disturb people, but their judgments about these things," he was cutting to the core of our modern malaise. We're not thrown off by setbacks. We're shaken by our own expectations and beliefs about how things ought to be. But avoidance culture tells us that if we hide from discomfort, if we dilute sadness with a constant stream of feel-good mantras, we'll be happy. In truth, that avoidance only leaves us unprepared for the inevitable storms of life. When the first real challenge hits, a job loss, a betrayal, a sudden illness, the mind that has been pampered by comfort will crack. Without the muscle of hardship, we have no resilience. This video isn't another cheerleader for toxic positivity. It's a map through the rough terrain of reality. We'll explore 8 core Stoic principles, each one a hard truth that initially hurts to hear but ultimately frees you. We begin by drawing a clear boundary between what you can control and what you cannot, then move through exercises like negative visualization and memento mori, the practice of recalling your mortality. We'll learn to embrace our fate, amor fati, to practice voluntary discomfort as training for wider challenges, and to face negative emotions without running. We'll see why virtue must outrank comfort, and why letting go of rigid expectations is the final key to inner freedom. If you're tired of living in a fragile bubble, if you're ready to confront life's harsher realities and emerge stronger, stick around. These principles were forged in the fires of adversity by people like Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, so that you can face your own struggles with clarity, courage, and compassion. It will hurt to hear, but it will set you free. Transition into principles. Now that we've confronted the illusion of endless comfort and seen how our frantic avoidance of discomfort leaves us brittle, it's time to chart a new course. The Stoics didn't offer palliatives or empty optimism. They handed us precise tools for building inner strength. Over the next 8 segments, we'll unpack each of these core principles, showing you not only what they mean, but how they operate in real life, guided by voices from antiquity who first distilled these lessons through their own suffering and trial. Why 8? Because each principle addresses a different vector of human fragility. Taken together, they form an interlocking system designed to steel your mind against pain, loss, and the unexpected. You'll see that none of these ideas exist in isolation. Distinguishing control from non-control shades into letting go of rigid expectations. Negative visualization dovetails with memento mori. Voluntary discomfort reinforces the habit of embracing fate. Like the rungs of a ladder, they lift you gradually out of a reactive existence into an empowered one. Our first task will be to draw a clear boundary. What belongs to your sphere of influence, and what does not. Epictetus reminds us that the outer world, other people's choices, societal opinions, random events, is simply indifferent. It's our judgments that turn indifferent things into blessings or curses. Once you grasp this, Marcus Aurelius says, you will find strength. Strength for what? For the relentless ups and downs that life invariably brings. From there, we move to negative visualization. It sounds counterintuitive. Why dwell on worst-case scenarios? Yet Seneca urges us to perceive ills beforehand, precisely so that when they arrive, they strike us with less force. We will explore how a modern CEO uses this technique in boardroom drills, and how you can adapt it to your own habits of mind. Next comes memento mori, the remembrance of mortality. In an age fixated on youth and permanence, the Stoics placed death at the very heart of their banquet celebrations. As Seneca wrote, let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Confronting death is the ultimate shock therapy against procrastination and fear. Once you've tasted the power of mortality awareness, you'll be ready to embrace amor fati, love of fate. Marcus Aurelius counsels us to treat every event, even the harshest, like a blazing fire, transforming it into energy and growth. We'll look at Amy Purdy's journey from paralysis to Paralympic champion as a living testament to this fiery embrace. The fifth principle, voluntary discomfort, is proactive. We'll see how deliberate, controlled hardship, fasting, cold showers, digital detoxes, builds mental calluses so that when real storms arrive, you don't shatter. Epictetus warned that difficulties show us what we are, and here you'll learn to volunteer for those tests. Then we turn inward to face negative emotions head-on. Anger, fear, grief. These are not enemies but teachers. Epictetus again. It's not things that upset us but our judgments about things. We'll practice observing feelings like passing weather, neither clinging nor resisting. Principle 7 asks you to put virtue above comfort. When confronted with moral compromise, will you choose the easy path or the right one? We'll examine Edward Snowden's choice to honor truth at the cost of personal safety and discuss small daily acts of integrity. Finally, with your foundation of resilience laid, we'll learn how to let go of expectations altogether. It's the ultimate release, caring deeply about your efforts yet receiving outcomes with equanimity. As Epictetus puts it, freedom is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Each segment builds on the last, guiding you from simple recognition of inner power to the profound freedom that comes from living in harmony with reality. No sugarcoating, these lessons will sting at first, but if you engage them fully, you'll discover that the very truths you dread are the keys to your liberation. Let's begin. Principle 1. Distinguish between what you can control and what you cannot. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies a deceptively simple yet transformative insight. Some things are within our power, and some things are not. This distinction, first, articulated in the 2nd century teachings of Epictetus, serves as the keystone for every other Stoic practice. If you can truly internalize it, you liberate your mind from endless struggle against forces you cannot change, and redirect your energy toward the one realm you can master: your own thoughts, choices, and attitudes. The Stoic articulation of vir. Control. Epictetus, born a slave and eventually freed to become one of antiquity's foremost teachers, offered these words in his discourses. Some things are up to us and some are not up to us. He divided human experience into 2 spheres: the up to us sphere, our judgments, intentions, desires, aversions, and choices, essentially our internal mental life; the not up to us sphere, everything external, our bodies, property, reputation, social status, the actions of others, and the unpredictable events of the world. When we attempt to extend our will into the external sphere, when we strive to force outcomes beyond our direct influence, we set ourselves up for frustration, anxiety, and disappointment. By contrast, focusing on what we can govern, our own responses, plants us firmly in a domain of genuine agency and resilience. Why the distinction is so crucial. reduces emotional turbulence. When you fixate on factors outside your control, every setback feels like a personal failure. A missed promotion, a friend's dismissive comment, a broken promise. They all sting because you've anchored your peace of mind to something you never fully owned. The Stoic remedy is to re-anchor your sense of well-being to your own intentions and actions. Creates clarity of action. Effort follows focus. If you spend precious mental energy worrying about others' opinions or unpredictable outcomes, you scatter your effort. But if you concentrate on refining your judgments and directing your will toward virtuous conduct, your actions become laser precise and dramatically more effective. Fosters resilience. Life inevitably delivers blows. Illness, loss, betrayal, failure. A mind accustomed to tending only its own garden weathers these storms far more readily than one obsessed with controlling the winds. By sharpening your internal locus of control, you build the mental muscle to adapt and rebound. Marcus Aurelius on internal sovereignty. Centuries after Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome and acclaimed Stoic author, echoed the same principle in his Meditations. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus was in a uniquely precarious position, wielding imperial authority, commanding legions, yet beset by political intrigue, military threat, and personal loss. His remedy was not to seek more power externally, but to fortify his own judgments and intentions. For him, true strength lay not in manipulating the world to his whims, but in steadying his own thoughts against its tumult. Modern embodiment. The story of Nick Vujicic, the life of Nick Vujicic, born without arms and legs, illustrates this stoic boundary and vivid relief. Confronted from birth with a reality he could not change, Nick faced a choice: to view his body as a prison or to focus instead on the only domain he could truly govern, his mind and spirit. Initial resistance. In his teenage years, Nick sunk into despair, believing that a fulfilling life required physical normalcy. Stoic turning point. Inspired by the realization that he could control only his own thoughts, effort, and attitude, he asked himself, "What can I do with what I have?" Relentless focus on the inner domain. He taught himself to type with his foot, to swim, to play sports, to connect authentically with others. Outcome. Today, Nick is a globally renowned motivational speaker, husband, and father, testament to the power of investing in what lies within our control. His journey underscores Epictetus's message. Freedom is not the absence of limitation, but the mastery of one's own will. Practical applications in daily life. At work, uncontrolled. Company budget decisions. Market forces, a manager's mood. Controlled. Your diligence, professionalism, willingness to learn, and the quality of your deliverables. Practice. When facing a stalled promotion, shift from ruminating on office politics to strengthening your skill set and work relationships. In relationships, uncontrolled. Another person's feelings, choices, or loyalty. Controlled. Your communication style, empathy, honesty, and capacity to set healthy boundaries. Practice. Rather than demanding someone change their behavior to soothe your insecurity, focus on how you express your needs and manage your expectations. In personal development, uncontrolled. Genetic factors, the pace of societal change, economic shifts. Controlled. The time you dedicate to study, the habits you cultivate, the mindset you adopt toward setbacks. Practice. If you're anxious about future uncertainties, reallocate mental energy toward building daily routines that foster growth, like regular reading or deliberate practice. Overcoming the illusion of control. Most people habitually overestimate their power to control outcomes. We assign blame when our plans unravel and credit ourselves when luck favors us. Both mistakes, according to Stoicism. Instead, the Stoics advise, neutralize externals. Regard them as indifferents. They are neither good nor bad in themselves. Value only attaches through our judgments. Own your will. Cultivate the habit of asking, Is this within my control? Whenever you feel upset. If the answer is no, consciously release it. If yes, take deliberate action. By practicing this mental triage, you cease the futile tug-of-war with reality and direct your energies where they yield genuine progress, on the only frontier you can ever conquer, yourself. The key takeaway distinguishing between what you can control and what you cannot is the foundational Stoic act. It transforms worry into focused effort, despair into opportunity, and victimhood into agency. When you grasp this principle, you stop hammering against immovable barriers and instead cultivate an unshakable fortress within. In the words of Epictetus, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about these things. Master your judgments and you master your life. That above all is the first painful truth that will set you free. Principle 2. Negative visualization. While modern self-help often urges us to visualize success, the Stoics counseled a more counterintuitive practice: negative visualization. Rather than rehearsing victory, deliberately imagine loss, failure, and adversity. This isn't pessimism for its own sake. It's a psychological inoculation, a way to temper your fear of suffering by facing it in the sanctuary of your own mind before it arrives. The philosophical root Seneca, tutor and advisor to the Emperor Nero, captured the essence of this technique in his letters. He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand. By mentally rehearsing misfortune, you strip it of its surprise and the overwhelming impact it can wield. What Seneca discovered over 2 millennia ago parallels the principle of stress inoculation in modern psychology. Brief, controlled exposure to stressors builds resilience to more severe shocks later on. The toxicity of constant optimism. Our culture is saturated with messages that equate positivity with virtue and view any hint of doubt as weakness. We're told to see the bright side and to treat concern about worst-case scenarios as unproductive worry. Yet this relentless optimism can backfire. Unpreparedness. When difficulties strike without warning, job loss, illness, relationship breakdown, we panic because we never entertained the possibility. The mind untrained for adversity recoils at first contact. Denial of reality, refusing to acknowledge potential failure, fosters an illusion of invulnerability. You may overcommit, neglect contingency planning, or dismiss warning signs. Heightened anxiety. Ironically, chronic suppression of negative thoughts increases overall anxiety. By consistently shunting dark possibilities into the forbidden zone, you grant them more power when they eventually surface. Negative visualization flips this dynamic. Instead of banishing the worst case, you invite it in, examine it, and learn from it. A modern boardroom anecdote. Imagine a tech startup on the verge of its biggest product launch. The CEO, far from being a doom and gloom figure, gathers her team in the conference room on the eve of rollout. She says, "I have bad news. This project has failed catastrophically." Panic ripples through the room. Then she adds, "That's the exercise." For 30 minutes, the team paints a vivid picture of failure. Servers crash, customers abandon the product, regulators issue fines, investors pull out. Hearts pound and palms sweat. But then, something remarkable happens. The discussion shifts to causes. What design flaw triggered the crash? How could customer service handle the backlash? What backup systems must we build? By the end of the session, the team has concrete contingency plans, clearer priorities, and a newfound composure. When launch day arrives and a critical bug does surface, they handle it calmly rather than catastrophically. This failure drill exemplifies Seneca's advice. By rehearsing adversity, the team reduces its emotional charge and increases its strategic options. Daily practices of negative visualization. You don't need a corporate crisis to harness this power. Here are 3 everyday exercises. Morning, loss check. Spend 2 minutes each morning imagining you've lost a prized possession, your smartphone, your wallet, or something sentimental. Notice the subtle anxiety that arises, then remind yourself this feeling is merely hypothetical. You'll find you're less rattled if any small inconvenience actually occurs. Relationship appreciation. Before a phone call with a loved one or at the end of a family dinner, imagine what it would feel like to never speak with them again. Let that imagined grief deepen your appreciation for the present moment. This shifts the baseline of gratitude upward. Career contingency. Planning, once a month, visualize being laid off or facing a major professional setback. Write down 3 concrete steps you would take: updating your resume, expanding your network, learning a new skill. By doing this, you convert abstract fear into actionable strategy. Each exercise exposes you to a controlled dose of discomfort. Over time, your emotional response to real setbacks diminishes, and you gain a reserve of practical solutions. The neuroscience of mental rehearsal. Recent research in cognitive science confirms that our brains struggle to distinguish vividly imagined events from real experiences. When you picture a scenario in detail, your neural circuits fire in patterns, similar to those triggered by the real thing. By mentally practicing coping with adversity, you strengthen the neural pathways that govern calm, strategic thinking under stress. In effect, negative visualization is mental muscle building. Each session increases your capacity to withstand genuine misfortune with curiosity rather than collapse. Balancing preparation with presence. A common misgiving is that dwelling on worst-case scenarios might drain joy from everyday life. But Stoicism offers a crucial caveat. Negative visualization is not an indulgence in perpetual gloom. Instead, it sharpens your capacity for gratitude. As Marcus Aurelius writes, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." After imagining loss, you're primed to savor what remains. The morning coffee tastes richer, a walk in the park feels crisper, a friend's smile warms more deeply. Negative visualization and gratitude are 2 sides of the same coin. By acknowledging potential absence, you heighten awareness of present abundance. From theory to transformation, the real benefit of negative visualization emerges when adversity does strike. Rather than flailing in shock, your mind recalls the rehearsal. I've seen this movie before. Fear loses its edge. You respond with contingency plans already sketched out and emotional equanimity forged through practice. Moreover, the practice cultivates humility. You learn that nothing, no status, no possession, no relationship is guaranteed. This humility anchors you against entitlement and narrows the gap between expectations and reality. The takeaway: negative visualization may feel uncomfortable at first. It requires courage to face the painful possibilities you instinctively avoid. But as Seneca promised, by perceiving ills beforehand, you disarm them. You cease to be a deer startled by every branch that snaps and become instead the hunter who strides confidently through the forest, prepared for any encounter. By making a habit of negative visualization, you transform the unknown from an enemy into a familiar training ground. You build emotional immunity, reinforce strategic thinking, and deepen gratitude for what you have. In Stoic terms, you steal the power of adversity before it can strike, and in doing so, you set yourself free. Principle 3. Memento mori, remember you will die. If negative visualization helps you rehearse loss, memento mori, the practice of recalling your own mortality, confronts you with the inevitability of death itself. In every culture and era, death stalks life's fringes. We moderns erect walls of distraction, 24/7 news feeds, binge-watching social media, to stave off the unsettling thought of our own end. Yet the Stoics regarded mortality not as a morbid fixation, but as the essential lens that brings life into sharpest focus. The Stoic framing of death, Seneca, writing to his friend Lucilius, urges, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing." By imagining that today could be your last, you confront the futility of procrastination and the fragility of human plans. That clear-sightedness dissolves petty worries, social status, minor slights, hollow distractions, and compels you to prioritize what genuinely matters. Ancient Roman rituals of mortality awareness, The Romans embedded memento mori into even their most lavish gatherings. During banquets, a slave would stand behind the reclining feastgoer and whisper, "Respice poste, homines te memento," or simply hold up a miniature skull. These garlands of ghastliness were not meant to horror guests, but to remind them that beneath the silk and wine, death is the common denominator. Such reminders helped reinforce humility, gratitude, and urgency. Another tradition placed a dancing skeleton, lavacro convivialis, at the center of the table. As guests indulged, the mechanical skeleton would twirl and nod, urging them, "Enjoy this moment, for it too shall fade." Confronting postponement and fear postponement is the natural companion of fear. We delay the hard conversation, the meaningful project, the life-changing adventure because we assume there will always be a later. But the Stoics sound a wake-up call. There is no guarantee of later. Every year, every month, every day might be the last. To live fully, we must treat each as precious and non-renewable. Marcus Aurelius writes in his Meditations, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." That admonition reframes every decision. It transforms a mundane routine into a conscious choice. Am I devoting this time to what I truly value? A modern testimony, from cancer diagnosis to authentic living. Consider the story of James, a corporate executive whose life seemed enviable. 6-figure salary, corner office, international travel. Beneath the facade, however, lay a gnawing sense of deferral. I'll write that novel when I retire. I'll reconnect with old friends after this big deal closes. I'll learn guitar when I have more time. Then came the diagnosis, stage 4 lymphoma. Confronted with mortality, James faced a crucible. In one day, everything became vivid. Every unsent email, every postponed dream, every neglected relationship. Immediate clarity. No more waiting. He told his company he would take a leave of absence, not to get better first, but to start living. Reprioritization. He began each morning by writing for an hour on his novel, then called a friend he'd lost touch with, then picked up guitar lessons. Authenticity. Over approval. He curated his remaining time around what felt meaningful to him, not what looked successful to others. 2 years later, in remission, James published his novel and speaks openly about how the proximity of death liberated him from societal expectations. Rather than a morose surrender, memento mori became his catalyst for a life of intention. The psychological impact of mortality. Salience. Modern psychology labels this phenomenon mortality salience. Studies show that when people are reminded of their finite lifespan, they often experience greater life satisfaction and altruism, provided they channel that awareness into constructive action rather than denial or despair. By making death a regular, disciplined contemplation, Stoics forced mortality salience into a productive framework, not to paralyze, but to propel, integrating memento mori into daily practice. Morning reflection. Upon waking, take 30 seconds to imagine it's the last day you'll ever wake up. What will you do differently? How will you treat others? Visual cues. Place a small object, perhaps a pebble or a shell, on your desk or nightstand. Each time you see it, let it prompt a breath and the thought, "This day is finite." Periodic journaling. Once a week, write a brief letter addressed to your future self, acknowledging current blessings and outlining what would make this week worthwhile if it were your last. Gratitude through loss. Before meals, silently recognize that the food and company you enjoy are not guaranteed. A moment of solemn gratitude transforms a routine meal into a celebration of life. Balancing urgency. With peace some worry that meditating on death leads to anxiety or nihilism. The Stoics anticipated this, emphasizing the attitude with which we regard mortality. It is not a grim hammer but a gentle guide. Not fear, but urgency. The awareness of death is meant to sharpen purpose, not spawn paralyzing dread. When Seneca wrote, "Let us postpone nothing," he meant to infuse your actions with immediacy, not to burden you with terror, not cynicism, but compassion. Knowing your time is limited deepens empathy for others. You see more clearly that everyone shares the same mortal condition, fostering kindness and understanding. Not escape, but embrace memento mori does not propel you to check out of life. It anchors you more fully. Like the skeleton at the Roman feast, it dances alongside joy, reminding you to treasure each moment. The liberation of mortality. Remembering death removes the anesthetic of distraction. It dissolves illusions of permanence, reveals the transience of external success, and concentrates attention on the present. With memento mori, you trade procrastination for purpose and agitation for equanimity. As Marcus Aurelius concludes, do every act of your life as though it were the very last act of your life. Bring that attitude to your next conversation, your next task, your next breath. In that instant, you are fully alive, aware, intentional, and free from the chains of someday. This may hurt to hear, but it will set you free. Every moment is a gift precisely because it will end. Choose to live it now. Principle 4, Amor Fati, love your fate. So far, we've learned to distinguish what's within our control, to rehearse loss and negative visualization, and to confront the certainty of death with memento mori. Those steps prepare the mind to endure hardship. But Amor Fati, the love of one's fate, takes us further. It calls us not merely to accept what life brings, but to embrace it as necessary and even desirable. In the Stoic view, every circumstance, pleasant or painful, is material for our growth. Defining Amor Fati, Latin for love of fate, asks us to actively welcome everything that happens, not as a resignation, but as a joyful embrace of reality. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in his Meditations, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." He's not offering a quaint metaphor, he's describing the transformative alchemy of the mind. When you love your fate, even hardship becomes fuel for inner radiance. The Stoic difference between acceptance and love: it's easy to say, accept what you cannot change, yet to merely tolerate misfortune is a timid stance. Stoicism demands more. You must care about every aspect of your path, seeing each twist as a vital ingredient in your unfolding character. Acceptance concedes defeat. I yield to circumstances. Amor Fati proclaims victory. I cherish circumstances. Acceptance is neutral. Love is affirmative. The Stoic doesn't just endure pain, grief, and loss. He welcomes them as teachers. Marcus Aurelius on loving fate. In another passage of the Meditations, Marcus urges, accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs? He reminds himself that every event, down to the smallest irritation, is part of the grand tapestry of his life. Rather than rail against the weave, he rejoices in its design. A living example. Amy Purdy's journey, Amy Purdy's life trajectory, offers a vivid modern portrait of Amor Fati in action. In 2012, a rare form of meningitis led to the amputation of both her legs below the knee, the loss of one kidney, and a battle for her life. Prior to this catastrophe, Amy was a vibrant snowboarder, TV show contestant, and outdoor enthusiast. Overnight, her identity and her body were rewritten. Initial shock and resistance. Like any of us, Amy recoiled from what she called the moment everything changed. She felt anger, grief, and a sense of being robbed. Stoic turning point, rather. Then, longing to return to her pre-amputation life, Amy made a fateful choice: to love her new reality. She reframed her disability not as a curse, but as a unique platform for growth and service. Transformation, through love of fate embracing her situation, she trained relentlessly, learned to balance on prosthetic limbs, and channeled her energy into competitive para-snowboarding. 3 years later, she won a silver medal at the 2014 Paralympic Games. and subsequently became an Emmy-nominated dancer on Dancing with the Stars. Amy's story illuminates amor fati's radical power. Suffering itself becomes the spark for extraordinary achievement when we refuse to reject what life gives us. Why loving fate matters. Transcends victimhood when we complain about why me. We trap ourselves in bitterness and helplessness. Amor fati flips the question to what for. The moment you see pain as purposeful, you shift from passive victim to active participant. Cultivates creative energy, just as a fire transforms wood into light. Loving our fate converts obstacles into opportunities. Entrepreneur Elon Musk, after multiple rocket failures at SpaceX, didn't abandon the project. He treated each setback as a data point, essential for eventual success. Deepens gratitude paradoxically. Embracing hardship magnifies our appreciation for comfort and joy. When you have learned to cherish the bitter, the sweet grows sweeter. Philosophical reinforcement from Epictetus. Epictetus wrote, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well." Here, the Stoic master distills amor fati into a simple formula. Adjust your desires to reality, rather than demanding reality conform to your desires. In doing so, you align will and world, a union that breeds serenity and power. Daily practices to cultivate amor fati. 1. Reframing challenges. When confronted with a difficulty, say, a canceled flight, pause and ask, how might this serve me? Perhaps the delay grants you extra rest, a chance to read, or an unexpected conversation. Affirming the inevitables each morning. Choose one minor inconvenience you're certain to face. Traffic, a tedious email chain, a demanding colleague, and mentally say, I welcome this test. This primes your mind to meet it with composure. Gratitude for the full spectrum. Maintain a journal entry not only for things that went well, but also for things that challenged you that day, noting the hidden gifts they offered. The argument with my friend sharpened my empathy, or the bill I didn't want to pay reminded me of my financial stability. Evening reflection. Before sleep, review the day's events, especially the painful ones, and silently affirm, all of this was necessary. I love it all. Overcoming resistance to amor fati. Loving one's fate can feel unnatural, even unsettling. We're wired to avoid pain. Yet true freedom emerges when you uproot this instinct and reprogram your desires to match reality. Begin small. Find one minor annoyance each day and actively welcome it. As your comfort with this grows, you'll find it easier to embrace larger trials without recoil. The profound liberation of loving fate. Amor fati is not a passive surrender, but an empowered embrace. It dissolves the friction between expectation and circumstance, removing the psychic toll of resentment. In its wake, you discover a steady joy unshaken by external turbulence, because you have no enemies left. Even adversity is a friend. Marcus Aurelius offers the ultimate invitation. Say to yourself in the early morning, I shall meet today ungrateful, violent, treacherous, envious, uncharitable men, and none of them can injure me, for my choice is invulnerable. Loving one's fate equips you with that invulnerability. You face each day, its triumphs and tribulations, with an open heart, clear eyes, and an unbreakable spirit. This will hurt to hear, but it will set you free. When you love what you once resisted, you transcend every limitation life can impose. Principle 5. Voluntary discomfort. So far, we've learned to distinguish our domain of control, rehearse loss, confront mortality, and embrace our fate. Each of these helps us respond to life's unavoidable hardships with resilience. But what about training ourselves before adversity strikes? That's where voluntary discomfort comes in. A proactive Stoic strategy for building mental toughness by deliberately embracing manageable hardships today, so that when genuine crises arrive, we don't break. The Stoic rationale for difficulty. Ancient Stoics didn't worship ease. Epictetus, once a slave, understood that real character is revealed and forged in the crucible of hardship. He wrote in his discourses, Difficulties are things that show a person what they are. In other words, adversity doesn't create strength, it reveals it. By intentionally stepping into discomfort, we get a preview of our default reactions and can choose to respond with discipline rather than panic. Marcus Aurelius echoes this sentiment in his Meditations. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Embracing obstacles transforms them from threats into the very path of growth. The problem with a life of unbroken comfort, our contemporary world offers countless conveniences: food delivered to our door, climate-controlled homes, endless streams of entertainment, even social media as an instant mood regulator. Yet this constant ease has a hidden cost. Eroded resilience without regular challenges, small setbacks feel insurmountable. A late train or a critical email can trigger outsized stress. Weakened capacity for effort. When we optimize for maximum comfort, we lose practice in making sacrifices. Long-term goals demand patience and delayed gratification, skills atrophied by habitual ease. Heightened anxiety about the unknown. If every day is frictionless, genuine adversity becomes terrifying. We lack rehearsal in facing real hardship. Voluntary. Discomfort inoculates us against these pitfalls by creating stress inoculation, a concept modern psychology recognizes as effective in building tolerance for distressing situations. Historical examples of Stoic hardship. Training. The ancient Stoics practiced their own versions of voluntary hardship, cold baths and minimal clothing, to toughen themselves against winter's bite. Stoics would bathe in cold water and sleep with fewer covers, reminding themselves that physical comfort is a choice, not a necessity. Fasting and simple diets. Seneca advised occasional fasting so that one would not become a slave to appetite. We should be trained to be masters of our desires, not their slaves. Public speaking exercises. Stoic students would practice oratory in front of tough audiences to build emotional poise under scrutiny. These rituals instilled discipline and reminded practitioners that a strong mind is independent of external ease. Modern applications of voluntary discomfort. You don't need to live in ancient Rome to adopt these lessons. Here are practical ways to build voluntary hardship into your routine. Digital detox practice. Turn off your phone and internet for a set period, an hour, a full day, or a weekend. Benefit: builds tolerance for boredom, deepens presence, and uncovers dependence on constant stimulation. Cold showers practice. End your daily shower with 30 seconds of cold water. Benefit: conditions your body and mind to embrace a minor shock, training you to remain calm under stress. Intermittent fasting practice. Skip breakfast once or twice a week or limit eating to an 8-hour window. Benefit: strengthens willpower, reduces clinginess to comfort foods, and heightens awareness of physical resilience. Physical challenges practice. Commit to a regular regimen, daily push-ups, a weekly long run, or yoga before dawn. Benefit: teaches you to endure discomfort, regulate breath under strain, and celebrate incremental progress. Embarrassment practice. Intentionally initiate a small social risk. Ask for directions in an accent you don't share. Sing karaoke alone or strike up a conversation with a stranger. Benefit: weakens fear of judgment, builds confidence in the face of uncertainty, and deepens empathy. Each of these exercises is a voluntary decision to confront mild discomfort so that when real pressures arise, layoffs, health crises, personal loss, you have a reservoir of experience in meeting discomfort with composure. The psychology behind hardship. Training. Modern research in stress inoculation therapy confirms what the Stoics practiced intuitively. Controlled exposure to low-level stressors reduces the psychological impact of future, more intense stress. Neurobiologically, these small challenges activate the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal (HPA) axis in brief pulses, strengthening its regulation, enhance prefrontal cortex activity, improving executive control over emotional reactions, build confidence, through mastery experiences which raises self-efficacy. In effect, voluntary discomfort is mental and physiological weightlifting for your stress response system. Overcoming resistance to voluntary hardship, our default is to avoid pain, and most people recoil at the idea of seeking it. To overcome this instinct, start small. You don't need to sign up for an ultramarathon. Begin with 1 minute of cold water or a short period offline. Schedule it, treat voluntary discomfort like any other appointment. Put fasting or a digital detox in your calendar. 3. Frame it as experiment. Adopt the mindset of a scientist. Let me see what happens if I try this. Curiosity eases resistance. Track your progress. Keep a simple log of your discomfort practices and note your emotional state before and after. Over time, you'll observe growing resilience. The payoff, strength in the unexpected. The purpose of voluntary discomfort is not to manufacture suffering, but to build an immune system for life's inevitable hardships. When a genuine crisis emerges, a sudden illness, a financial setback, a personal betrayal, you won't be a deer in headlights. You'll recall the cold shower, the missed meal, the silent morning walk without your phone. Those experiences become mental anchors reminding you, I've faced discomfort by choice. I can face it by necessity. Furthermore, voluntary hardship deepens your appreciation for ease when it returns. A warm bath after a cold shower feels richer. A hearty meal after a fast tastes more nourishing. A day online after a digital detox seems more focused. By cycling between discomfort and comfort on your own terms, you reclaim control over pleasure rather than being at its mercy. Voluntary discomfort is the Stoic answer to a life habituated to ease. It's a deliberate practice of stepping outside your comfort zone, not for cruelty toward yourself, but for the cultivation of character and freedom. As Epictetus reminds us, difficulties reveal what we are. By seeking out manageable difficulties, you learn who you truly are and what you're capable of. This principle may hurt to practice, but it will set you free. In the fires of chosen hardship, you build the unbreakable steel of resilience that life's unchosen trials can no longer bend. Principle 6. Face and accept negative emotions. In our culture, negative emotions, anger, sadness, fear, shame, are treated as intruders to be silenced or evaded. We scroll social media to escape boredom, binge-watch shows to numb stress, and plaster on forced positivity whenever discomfort creeps in. Yet Stoicism posits that these emotions are not enemies to be banished, but signals to be observed and learned from. By facing and accepting negative emotions, we strip them of their hidden power and transform them into catalysts for growth. The Stoic view of emotion, Epictetus, that keen observer of the human mind, taught, it's not things themselves that upset us, but our judgments about things. In other words, an insult hurts not because of the words themselves, but because we judge that those words shouldn't have been spoken. A setback wounds us not due to the event, but because we believe we shouldn't have been thwarted. Negative emotions arise from our internal narratives, not from the raw facts of reality. Marcus Aurelius reinforces this in his Meditations. If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them, and it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now. The Stoics therefore saw emotions as natural weather patterns of the mind, clouds that form, drift, and dissipate, rather than enemies to be fought or disorders to be medicated away. The cost of avoidance. When we habitually avoid or suppress negative feelings, 3 harmful consequences follow. Emotional amplification. Suppressing anger or grief often intensifies them. Like steam under a lid, unexpressed feelings build pressure until they erupt uncontrollably. Loss of self-knowledge. Our feelings carry important information about our values and needs. By running from sorrow or shame, we miss the chance to understand ourselves more deeply. Dependence on distraction, constantly seeking pleasures and distractions, leaves us ill-equipped to sit with discomfort. A few minutes of silence can feel unbearable, prompting us to reach for the nearest device. Stoicism offers an alternative. Observe emotions in real time, understand their origin, and let them pass without extending their stay. Practicing the Stoic. Apathy. The Greek term apatheia, often mistranslated as apathy, actually denotes a state of equanimity, not indifference. It is a mind free from the servitude of overwhelming passions. To achieve apatheia, Stoics practiced momentary pause. When feeling anger or fear, they would literally pause, stop speaking or moving, and bring full attention to the sensation arising. In the body, objective observation, they'd label the feeling, this is anger, this is anxiety, as though they were a detached scientist studying a specimen. Return to breath and reason. After acknowledgement, they would gently shift focus to their breath or to a rational counterthought. What is the judgment causing this emotion? Can I adjust it? Epictetus advised, when you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger. By turning inward rather than lashing outward, the Stoic dissolves the fuel that feeds emotional fires. A real-life scenario. Handling workplace frustration. Imagine you're at work and a colleague publicly overlooks your contribution in a meeting. You feel a surge of anger and embarrassment. The instinctive response might be to simmer in resentment, to rant later to friends, or to submit passive-aggressive feedback. A Stoic approach would look like this. Immediate pause. You notice the tightness in your chest and the heat in your face, and you take a breath instead of reacting. Label the emotion mentally. Note, this is anger. This is hurt pride. Trace the judgment. Ask yourself, what am I telling myself? That I should be recognized. Recognizing this belief is what sparked the anger. Reframe or release. Either reinterpret the event. Perhaps they genuinely forgot, not intentionally slighted me, or release the need for recognition in that moment. My value isn't decided by this one meeting. Choose a response. If you still wish to be heard, you calmly request a follow-up conversation for constructive feedback. If not, you let it rest knowing you've practiced composure. This process doesn't suppress the feeling. It honors it, extracts its lesson, and then lets it pass, much like watching clouds drift by in the sky. The science of emotional regulation. Modern. Affective neuroscience confirms that labeling emotions, affect labeling, reduces amygdala activation, the brain's center for threat response. Simply naming a feeling engages the prefrontal cortex, which in turn helps regulate intensity. Stoic practices anticipated this discovery. By naming and examining emotions, we engage our rational mind to temper emotional storms. Daily exercises to face negative emotions. Emotional check-in. Set a timer 3 times a day. Pause, take 3 deep breaths, and scan for any brewing feelings of irritation, sadness, or anxiety. Label them silently and let them move on. The why. Drill. When an emotion arises, ask why 5 times. If you feel fear before a presentation, drill down. Why? Fear of judgment. Why? Belief that others' opinions define my worth. Until you reach a core assumption you can challenge or adjust. Journaling without censure. Write down an emotional experience in present tense, describing sensations and judgments without moralizing. e.g., I feel a tightness in my throat because I believe I shouldn't be ignored. This fosters objective awareness. Stoic, view from above. Mentally detach and visualize yourself and the triggering event from a bird's-eye perspective. This expanded vantage reduces the emotional charge and reminds you of the event's smallness in the grand scheme. Overcoming the fear of feeling. Many hesitate to face negative emotions for fear of becoming overwhelmed. Stoicism advises a gradual approach. Start with small emotions, mild annoyance or fleeting jealousy, so that you build confidence before tackling deeper wounds. Remember Epictetus's words, don't just say you have read books, show that. Through them you have learned to think better, to be a more discriminating and reflective person. Practicing emotional observation is exactly that, learning to think and feel more skillfully. The transformative payoff: by facing negative emotions head-on, you achieve emotional mastery. You're no longer at their mercy. You ride the currents rather than being swept away. Authentic self-knowledge. Your beliefs, desires, and blind spots come into clear view, empowering you to align your actions with your highest values. Deepened compassion. Having faced your own darker feelings, you grow more understanding of others' struggles and less quick to judge. This inner freedom, earned by the honest confrontation of discomfort, is a core Stoic victory. Negative emotions are not flaws to be eradicated, but messengers to be welcomed. When anger, sorrow, or fear arises, Stoicism teaches you to sit with it, name it, trace its origin, and let it flow through you without clinging or aversion. In doing so, you dismantle emotional reactivity and claim sovereignty over your inner life. This practice will hurt. Feeling raw emotion often stings, but it will set you free. You become unshakable not by numbing yourself, but by learning to stand fully present in the full spectrum of your humanity. Principle 7. Put virtue above comfort. Throughout our exploration of Stoic principles, we've honed skills to face discomfort, control our judgments, and embrace whatever life delivers. Yet there remains a deeper test. When the path of virtue conflicts with the path of comfort, which will you choose? Stoicism teaches that true freedom and lasting fulfillment spring not from maximizing comfort, but from living in accordance with virtue, the qualities of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, which alone hold intrinsic value. The Stoic hierarchy of goods. In the Stoic schema, goods fall into 3 categories: virtues, real goods; wisdom, prudent judgment; justice, fairness, integrity; courage, moral and physical; bravery, temperance, self-control, moderation; indifference, health, wealth, reputation, pleasure, pain. These are preferred or dispreferred, but neutral in ultimate worth. Vices, real evils; foolishness, injustice, cowardice, excess. Epictetus declares, "Virtue alone is truly good, and vice alone is truly bad." Things indifferent, health, wealth, reputation, are neither good nor bad in themselves. By placing virtue at the apex of our value system, we free ourselves from slavish pursuit of comfort or fear of hardship. We act rightly because it is right, not because it feels easy. The problem with comfort as a primary goal. Ephemeral and fragile comfort depends on external conditions, climate, control, secure finances, social approval, all subject to change. When they falter, so does our sense of security. Erodes moral fiber. If the chief aim of life is to avoid pain and maximize ease, one becomes susceptible to small moral compromises for the sake of convenience, bending truth, shirking responsibility, yielding to peer pressure. Perpetuates a victim mindset. When discomfort arrives, as it inevitably does, we view ourselves as wronged rather than tested. We seek to escape rather than to learn and grow. Stoicism counters these pitfalls by directing us to anchor our identity in character rather than comfort. Marcus Aurelius on integrity over ease. Writing amid political intrigue and battlefield challenges, Marcus Aurelius insisted that external ease was irrelevant to a life well lived. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. He recognized that true tranquility stems from inner concordance, living in harmony with one's own highest principles, rather than from favorable circumstances. The Snowden example, virtue at the cost of exile. Few contemporary stories capture the tension between comfort and virtue better than Edward Snowden's. As an NSA contractor, he enjoyed a stable, high-paying job security, clearance, and professional prestige, a predictable life trajectory. Yet in 2013, upon uncovering classified surveillance programs that he believed infringed on fundamental privacy rights, Snowden faced a crucible. Comfort's invitation: remain silent, preserve his career, and avoid turmoil. Virtue's demand: expose wrongdoing, inform the public, and uphold justice, even if it meant defying powerful institutions. He chose virtue. The consequences were severe. Exile in Russia with restricted movement, permanent separation from family and homeland, constant risk of legal prosecution. Yet Snowden has repeatedly said that in sacrificing comfort, he achieved a deeper freedom, the freedom of acting in accordance with conscience and principle. He embodied the Stoic maxim that external losses pale beside internal integrity, everyday acts of virtue. Over comfort, putting virtue above comfort doesn't require whistleblowing on a global stage. It plays out in small, daily choices. Honesty. When it's hard scenario, a friend asks for your opinion on an important decision. Comfort choice. Offer polite agreement to avoid awkwardness. Virtue. Choice. Speak truthful counsel, even if it stings. Courage in accountability scenario. You made a mistake at work. Comfort choice. Conceal or shift blame to avoid discomfort. Virtue. Choice. Own the error, apologize, and propose solutions. Fairness. Under pressure scenario. You have the power to give preferential treatment. Comfort choice. Reward friends or allies. Virtue. Choice. Distribute resources impartially. Self-restraint against temptation scenario. You're irritated with a colleague. Comfort choice. Vent on social media or gossip. Virtue choice. Practice patience, seek to understand, and address issues constructively. Each momentary sacrifice of ease fortifies character and cements the habit of choosing what is right over what is expedient. Philosophical reinforcement. Epictetus on inner sovereignty. Epictetus reminds us, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. It is not enough to profess Stoic ideals. One must incarnate them through action, especially when comfort tempts you to do otherwise. Embodiment means choosing the harder path because it leads to lasting fulfillment. Cultivating a virtue-first mindset. Define your core values list, the virtues most important to you, honesty, compassion, responsibility, and keep them visible, e.g., on your desk or phone wallpaper. This constant reminder biases decisions toward integrity. Pre-commitment strategies. If you struggle with temptation, e.g., overspending, procrastination, set up external constraints. Automate savings to resist impulse buys. Use website blockers. During work hours. Daily moral inventory at day's end. Review your choices. Did you act in line with your values or prioritize comfort? What will you do differently tomorrow? 4. Role models and mentors. Study lives of those who exemplify virtue under pressure. Philosophers, activists, community leaders, and let their examples guide you. Overcoming the siren song of ease. Comfort is seductive. To resist, embrace discomfort. As diagnostic. When you feel the pull of ease, interpret it as a signal to examine your motives. Am I choosing this for genuine well-being or to avoid a moral test? Reframe sacrifice as gain. Each moment you choose virtue, you earn self-respect and inner strength, currencies that outlast fleeting pleasures. Remember the high price of compromise. An innocent lie today can snowball into guilt tomorrow and damage your reputation and self-esteem over time. The payoff. Enduring freedom. Paradoxically, by rejecting the pursuit of comfort in favor of virtue, you achieve a deeper, more enduring tranquility. No external storm, financial collapse, social rejection, physical hardship, can shake the person who has anchored identity in principled action. As Marcus Aurelius observed, true happiness is to live in accordance with nature, to behave with dignity, to keep one's heart inviolate by the world. When virtue is your compass, you navigate life's tempests with unruffled calm because you know you are doing what is right. Putting virtue above comfort is perhaps the most countercultural Stoic principle. It asks you to sacrifice short-term ease for long-term integrity, to walk the narrow ridge between expedience and principle. It will hurt, moral courage often. Demand stepping into social disapproval or personal discomfort, but it will set you free. Free from the gnawing regret of compromise, free to stand unbowed regardless of external circumstance, and free to live a life of genuine meaning. Principle 8. Letting go of expectations. We live in an era that venerates planning, goal setting, and visualization. We're taught to script our futures, perfect careers, idyllic relationships, flawless vacations, and to assume life will unfold according to our designs. Yet when reality invariably diverges from the script, disappointment follows. Stoicism offers a final, liberating principle. Instead of chaining your happiness to fixed outcomes, release your grip on expectations. In doing so, you reclaim peace. Amid life's unpredictability, the Stoic diagnosis of expectation Epictetus admonishes, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Expectations about future events are aspirations for things that, by their nature, you cannot fully command. Outcomes depend on countless external variables, other people's wills, the vagaries of chance, the hidden workings of fate. Clinging to them is like weatherproofing your roof while ignoring the storm that shatters your windows. Marcus Aurelius similarly advises, don't hanker after what you don't have. Instead, fix your attentions on the finest and best that you have, and imagine how much you would long for these if you didn't have them. He redirects our focus from future gains to current gifts. The pain of rigid expectations. Rigid expectations injure us in two ways. Built-in disappointment. If you expect your promotion this quarter, a minor delay feels catastrophic. If you envision an ideal wedding day, a shower-soaked ceremony can shatter your joy. Tunnel vision. When you fixate on a single outcome, you blind yourself to alternative possibilities and present blessings. Your mind narrows to this or nothing, increasing anxiety and reducing creative openness. Stoicism counsels a middle path: plan and strive, but hold your plans with a light hand. The philosophical remedy Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He pinpoints the source of much anguish, the stories we tell ourselves about how things must turn out. By loosening these narratives, you live more fully in the actual moment, rather than in a self-constructed future. Epictetus offers a practical mantra. Remember that you are an actor in a play, of such a kind as the author chooses. If short, then in a short one. If long, then in a long one. If he wishes you to act a poor man, a cripple, a governor, or a private person, see that you act it well. Here, life is a performance whose script you don't write. Your task is excellence in the role you're given, not to demand a different part. A travel anecdote. When plans go awry, imagine you've saved months for a dream trip, a seaside villa, gourmet dinners, picture-perfect sunsets. You arrive only to discover an unexpected storm. Flights are delayed, roads flood, the villa's generator fails. Your Instagram-ready itinerary collapses. A rigid mindset sees catastrophe. A Stoic, however, asks, what can I control? How I respond, the attitude I bring, the people I share it with. What am I missing? Perhaps unplanned solitude, raw authenticity, unexpected camaraderie with fellow travelers stranded in the same storm. By letting go of the perfect trip expectation, the traveler discovers hidden joys, impromptu board games by candlelight, local musicians performing in flooded streets, a newfound appreciation for safety and warmth. The storm remains, but the mind is unbound. Daily practices to release expectations. If, then, planning, instead of if X happens, then I'll be happy. Use if X happens, then I'll adjust by doing A, B, or C. This retains preparation, while removing the demand for a single outcome. Evening reflection on surprises. Each night, note one thing that went differently than you planned, and one unexpected positive it brought. Over time, you'll train your mind to anticipate surprises as potential gifts. Mindful letting go. Ritual. When you notice an unmet expectation, pause and breathe. Visualize the expectation as a leaf on a stream, gently setting it afloat. Repeat silently, "Not my will, but reality's will." 4. Broaden your win. Definition: before tackling a project, define multiple criteria for success. This prevents outcome tunnel and accepts partial achievements as wins. Overcoming the fear of indifference. Letting go of expectations can feel like apathy or passivity. To counter this, distinguish effort from results. You still strive diligently. You refine plans and take decisive action, but you don't bind your worth to the result. Cultivate detached engagement, like a gardener tending plants. Without demanding exact blooms on a strict schedule, you water, prune, and nourish, then accept whatever grows. Anchor and process joy. Focus on the enjoyment of the work itself, learning, creating, connecting, rather than on external approval or endpoints. Philosophical reinforcement. Seneca's advice. Seneca reminds us, throw aside all hindrances and yield to the course of nature. He likens life to a river. Your role is to swim skillfully, not to dam or reroute the current. When you stop wrestling with circumstances beyond your control, your energy flows freely into meaningful action. The transformative payoff: by letting go of rigid expectations, you gain emotional equanimity. Upsets lose their edge when you're not betting your happiness on a single outcome. Expanded creativity. Open to alternative pathways. You spot opportunities you'd otherwise ignore. Deepened appreciation. Unexpected moments, small kindnesses, simple pleasures stand out when they aren't overshadowed by unmet ideals. Ultimately, a mind unbound by fixed outcomes is free to dance with life's unfolding, resilient in the face of disappointment and receptive to surprises and serendipities. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean abandoning ambition or shirking responsibility. It means caring deeply about your efforts while releasing the demand that life conform to your blueprint. As Epictetus counseled, play your role with excellence, but relinquish authorship of the script. In that surrender, you discover true freedom. The serenity to meet each moment as it comes, unshaken by unmet desires and open to life's rich tapestry. This principle may sting. Renouncing the illusion of control is never painless, but it will set you free. We've journeyed through 8 Stoic principles, each a hard truth that initially stings but ultimately frees. Distinguish what you can control from what you cannot, so your energy isn't wasted on the ungovernable. Negative visualization to inoculate yourself against shock and build emotional resilience. Memento mori, the regular reminder of your mortality, to spur urgency and authenticity. Amor fati, the love of your fate which transforms every event, pleasant or painful, into material for growth. Voluntary discomfort as training ground for real-life adversity, strengthening your mental muscles. 6. Face and accept negative emotions, observing anger, fear, and grief without judgment until they pass. Put virtue above comfort, choosing integrity over ease even when the cost is high. Let go of expectations, caring deeply about effort, but releasing attachment to outcomes. Seneca warned, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and Epictetus taught that our judgments, not external events, are the true source of pain. Marcus Aurelius, amid imperial burdens, found unshakable strength by turning inward. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. What these 8 principles share is a single thread. True freedom is not the elimination of difficulty, but the mastery of your own responses to it. By shifting your focus from controlling circumstances to cultivating inner virtue and resilience, you build a mind that remains steady in the face of life's inevitable storms. Now it's your turn. Which principle resonated most deeply or challenged you the hardest? Perhaps it was the sharp slap of mortality in Memento Mori, or the radical embrace of adversity in Amor Fati. Maybe you're ready to let go of expectations and find peace in uncertainty, or to schedule weekly failure drills, with negative visualization. Share your thoughts and your own experiences in the comments below. If this exploration of Stoic wisdom spoke to you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into philosophies that empower and liberate. And when you're ready, click the video on screen to continue your Stoic journey. We have much more to uncover. Remember, the truths that hurt to hear are often the ones that set us free.